Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Today we talk about the provisions, the advantages of the plea bargaining legislation. We have with us the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Delroy Chuck, and he'll be shedding light on this critical area. We thank you so much for your company. Minister, good to have you.
Always a pleasure being on your program.
On the show. The plea bargaining legislation, what are the advantages of it?
Well, just recently we revised the plea bargaining bill. Originally, it provided that for you to engage in plea bargaining, the accused person would have to give some assistance to the Crown in terms of implicating others, in terms of solving crime. Yes. That was not going anywhere because no one wanted to be an informer, especially knowing the consequences in Jamaica. So we have a completely new bill now, where the plea bargain resembles exactly what happens in the United States. And what happens in the United States is virtually all crimes that the prosecution and defense counsel enter into negotiations, and in 97% of criminal cases in the federal court and 94% in the state courts, you have a bargain. There's a conviction based on a guilty plea.
As much as that?
90-odd%. So the position is that more than 9 out of 10 cases are actually dealt with by a plea bargain. In Jamaica, it's the reverse. Much less than 10% actually accused persons plead guilty. This has to change. The criminal justice system is overburdened. It is really, the backlog is such that the courts are bursting at the seams, and in many courts, every week you can see that they're at the point of collapsing. And unless we find an alternative way to deal with the huge number of cases which actually get into the parish courts and into the circuit courts, we will never be able to resolve and really settle these matters appropriately. So this plea bargaining bill is meant to tackle some of these cases. And how it intends to do this, Ian, is that the prosecution and the defense counsel and the plea judge will have to bear in mind that if you can get an accused person to plead guilty, it saves an enormous amount of time and resources, not only of the state, but of the judges' judicial time, the prosecution preparation, the number of witnesses, including the police who have to come to court, and also the defense counsel who have to prepare and cross-examine, sum up, and address the jury, etc. And what is necessary, in my view, in all the cases, we have to look, at least attempt to get a settlement. Because Ian, if we look at the circuit courts for this term, this Hillary term, we have in excess of 2,000 cases, over 700 cases in the home circuit. If we try these cases without any more coming on stream, and by the way, cases are coming on every week, but let us say these 700 cases, a case takes an average, I mean some take a couple of days, others take a couple of weeks, but on average, let us say you try 1 per week. It's unlikely you would be able to try more than 4 per week. If we sit for 40 weeks, that's 160 cases. 160 cases for the year. So 700 cases, you can see immediately you're going into 5 years just to try those 700 cases. It is impossible. Yes. So my view is that we have to find a way that in all the circuits this year and in the parish courts, we find a way to have guilty pleas in at least 50%, preferably more, yes, but in at least 50%. And why do I say 50%, Ian? My view is that more than 50% of the accused persons who have been charged know something, know something, and probably are guilty as charged. I'm not saying all, because you have many cases in which there are good defenses, such as self-defense, and you have cases in which persons have been charged wrongly. but I would say more than 50%. So if those persons who know something about the case will just accept responsibility and say, yes, I participated, I am the offender, and having accepted that responsibility, negotiate with the Crown, the prosecution, I'm willing to plead guilty, but let us look at sentence. Now, that doesn't mean that the sentence he wants is the sentence he's going to get. And in fact, I go further. I would start out by saying that the prosecutors, the clerk of the courts, who, by the way, their name will soon be changed because the clerk of the courts will become a part of the DPP shortly, so they could be assistant public prosecutors. But in every single case, based on the facts, based on the state where the case is, and once the prosecutor feels that they have a good case, should make an offer to the accused person, perhaps through his or her attorney, that if you plead guilty, we are willing to propose a sentence of X years. Now, that begins the process of negotiation. The accused person is unlikely to accept the first offer of the sentence. So the accused person usually will say, I am only going to plead guilty if I get a non-custodial sentence, which is nonsense. Because in many serious crimes, the judge simply cannot impose a non-custodial sentence because the judge, who is the plea judge accepting a guilty plea, will have to take into consideration the public interest. And the public interest, including the sensitivities of the victim, the investigator who knows a lot about the accused person, those must be taken into consideration. What is the accused doing? Is he remorseful? Is he contrite? Is he willing to compensate the victim? All of these will be taken into consideration in deciding what is an appropriate sentence.
I'm going to break you at this point, Minister. Minister Delroy Chuck giving us an absorbing justification of the plea bargaining bill. He has more when we come back from the short break.